In real life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Translators on Air. My name is Dmitry Kornikhov. I'm your host. Join me today, my incredible co-host, Elena Tereschenkova. Hi, Elena.
Hey, guys.
And our guest today, Vasiliki Prestidge. Hi, Vasiliki.
Hi.
Vasiliki is a freelance translator, blogger, and consultant. She works from English into Greek and Greek into English, specializing in medical, marketing, and advertising, as well as travel and tourism and official documents. As a consultant, she helps businesses understand, review, improve their translation process by encouraging the use of technologies and implementation of best practices. She believes in the importance of continuous professional development, and she attends several events, workshops, seminars, and conferences every year, mainly in London. She lives and works in Oxford in England. And the topic of our today's webinar is continuous professional development. You will learn why it is important, where to find CPD events, and how to choose the ones for you, and how to overcome the shyness and learn how to get out of your cave. But before we jump to the topic of our conversation, I would like to make a few announcements, as always. The fourth season of Translators on Air has been sponsored by our friends at SmartCat. SmartCat offers a great platform where you can find new clients, find more work, collaborate with your existing clients, use their CAT tool absolutely for free. So if this is something you're interested in, check out SmartCat by clicking the green shiny button below this video, or if you're watching or listening this in the recording, you can always visit the first link in the description. All right, we have a few people tuning in. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hello, Sylvia, Sharif, Zentra, Anna, Charlotte, Mario, Isabel, Spyrus, Alexander. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I'm sure more people will be joining us later. For those of you this for the first time, this is a live webinar. Everything is happening in real time. You can participate in the discussion using the chat window on the right-hand side. You can say hi and hello. Or if you have a specific question and you want Vasiliki, Yelena, and me to discuss your question and answer it, there is an Ask a Question button below this video. You can click it and post your question there, or you can upvote the questions that you really like. We also created several polls for you. This will give us a better idea of your background, how many hours you dedicate to continuous professional development. So if you have a few seconds to spare, check out the polls. They are just below this video, next to the Ask a Question button. Okay. And of course, don't forget to share this because we still have a few spots left. You can share the link from your browser window. Go on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or in any other network that you use, and invite your friends and colleagues to join us, because more people, more fun. All right, Vasiliki, how are you?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. How are you? How is everybody?
Well, we are good. We were just chatting with Vasiliki about the weather, and it seems like it's been quite a rainy day in London, right?
Yeah, it's been drizzling all day, but not too cold, which is really good. Although I prefer cold to rain, so I don't know. But being a freelancer, you can stay inside. You don't have to go out. So that's the positives of our lives, right?
That's true.
So if you're training and you don't have to go out, you just don't go out. But sometimes you do have to go out because given how often it rains, you just end up being inside all your life if you live in England. So it doesn't matter really if it rains or not.
So, Vasiliki, I made a quick introduction, said a few things about you, but it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background in translation and how you ended up in this beautiful profession.
Sure, yeah. It's a long story, but I can't actually imagine doing anything else than doing what I do right now, being a translator. I've started, let's say, quite young. I was born in Cyprus and lived in both Greece and Cyprus. And Cyprus is a particular case because it has 3 official languages. in English, Greek, and Turkish. And so you're thrown into the multilingual from a very young age. And then we moved to Greece, and then I actually at some point I realized English, French, all the different languages I started studying is what I want to do professionally in my life. So I did a bachelor degree in English with linguistics and then master's in business translation and interpreting. And my first job was actually something similar to what Dimitri you do, because I started as a QA, a language tester for video games.
Oh, awesome.
Right even before finishing my my master's degree, which was incredible because I was doing the course and at the same time I was going to this office where I was testing all these video games, and it was pretty crazy experience. Nothing I really chased, but it happened because I actually attended a workshop in video game localization. And so CPD got me my first job, which is very relevant to what we're talking about today. And I guess, you know, some of my classmates didn't get it. And I want to believe that it's because I did that CPD workshop and I got that they didn't. So, you know, there's various different reasons as to why you would get a job or not. But I'd like to believe that, you know, that kind of pushed me towards that direction. And since I finished really my studies, I've been in the translation industry, either as a video game localization tester or a translator interpreter. I did some a few months actually in public service interpreting in London. That was very tough because of the weather and the traveling and the cold. Then I worked as translations manager in-house in translation companies. And then I worked as a publishing manager for a psychometrics and psychologist publisher, which is mainly why I'm interested in the psychology of work and the psychology of CPD, if you want, because there's a lot to be said about attending CPD and what comes with it in terms of mental energy and strength. Because actually, according to statistics, a lot of freelancers are introverts. And whilst that is a benefit, because being an introvert means you're okay to be by yourself, you don't worry, you don't feel like you feel that they actually cannot do this. They have to go out, they have to meet people, they have to work in an office. But freelancers often, based on psychology statistics, tend to be introverts. And that is towards their advantage because it works for what they do professionally in life. So I guess why am I here today and why I chose this topic? I really care about continuous professional development, and I want to share my own experience and tips that I've developed over time, because, for example, this year only I've achieved about 100 or just under or just over 100 hours of CPD, and I felt at times very frustrated because there is so much choice out there. You don't know which ones are good for you, which ones you should go to, which ones you should not go to. Sometimes I felt frustrated because I went to events and I knew more than the speaker. And I thought, what am I doing here? I'm not learning anything. And what should I do to... Sometimes I felt frustrated at my own self, because I remember, especially at the beginning, I would go to events and I would speak to nobody. I wouldn't give my business card to anyone. And then I'd go home and I'd think, why did I do this? Why did I spend the time, the effort? You know, you pay money on your train ticket maybe on the tube or the bus or the petrol money for your car or whatever, and then you realize I didn't actually benefit from this at all because I wasn't speaking to anyone. I didn't network. Nobody knows who I am. So I was getting really frustrated with myself as well. So I decided I have to change this. I have to push myself. I have to push myself. And slowly I've started putting together a little routine or a few tips, a few things that I do before I go to events and after I go to events. And I want to share those with you today. So I want to share with you my tips and my experience and where some of those events have actually led me to. So that's basically the introduction, I guess, and why I am
That
here.
Sounds pretty exciting. I mean, the part... I love different tips, and I personally like when people share their experience and something that worked for them. So that sounds really exciting. Can we start by quickly answering the least popular question on our list about why CPD is important? I guess it's important. It's the least popular question because people mostly know why it is important, but still, just in case.
Yeah, so I think throughout this talk, this question is going to be covered, but I guess the most important reason is because we don't have colleagues. We're not in an office. We are, most of us, by ourselves. And if you think about it, people who work in businesses, in offices, they might say on Friday evening, hey, let's go to the pub, let's go for a drink. We don't say that, we can't do that. So where do we meet our colleagues? Where do we meet people to talk about how bad our day was or how good our day was? So one of the reasons why CPD is important is because it's a good outlet. You need to have that network of support around you where you can talk to people who are like you, who think like you, like-minded people that will perhaps understand your problems, what you're dealing with, and give you some advice. So that could be your fellow translator colleagues, for example. And then I guess the very obvious one is sometimes you will meet your clients in those CPD events. Even some of them, perhaps the most of the events you might go to are translation focused. They might be therefore attended by translators. Nonetheless, you could get referrals from them. So there is a lot of the projects I have received is because I met a French translator, let's say, in an event I attended for marketing translation. And because they do not do translation into Greek, they said to their client, hey, I have a really good colleague who does Greek. Here is their contact. So that is another reason. Then there is, if you want, more institutional reasons as to why somebody should attend CPD. And I can see here from the poll that almost, 50-50 split we've gotten who is a member of a professional body or association. Actually, 6 people said no, 5 said yes. So some of these associations or professional bodies, for example, let's say the Institute of Linguists or FID, in each country has its own professional body. And if you're a member of a professional body, you are supposed to adhere to a certain code of conduct. Now that code of conduct might say, in order to comply with this, you need to achieve 35 hours CPD a year. And occasionally they might ask you and say, what have you done this year? Can you give us a proof of your records? So that's another reason why it is important. And then actually I've started seeing it more and more in translation agency contracts, They say we expect our contractors, freelance translators, to attend a certain amount of CPD each year, and we occasionally might ask you to prove that you have been doing that. And if you are not, then they could say you're in breach of your contract. So there is, some, if you want, like legalese things around CPD, and then there is some, the mental health benefits for you as a freelancer. Then there is the client and career opportunities. And then, of course, I guess the most important one for me is that to do our profession, to do our job properly and well enough, you need to constantly be learning. So new things happen all the time. We know this. We have constantly new technologies. We have new types of services. Various industries change, and that's not something that happens only in the language industry. It's something that all professionals face. So these are, a few of the top reasons I would say CPD is very important.
We have actually a question from Spyros, and he asks, could you define CPD, and are there any limitations to what translator can participate in? I guess we already defined what CPD is quite broadly, but can you talk about the limitation of what you can participate in?
Yeah, actually, this is a very good question, and I'm really glad Spiros asked this, because I do want to say actually what CPD is in a kind of more specific definition, because I think what people may not know is that CPD is categorized in two different ways mainly, and that's formal and informal. So formal CPD is any event you might go to that says in its description, by attending this event, you have achieved 6 hours of CPD, and it has the CPD logo on the certificate they might give you. So that's a very formal kind of CPD. Then informal CPD is anything you do that can in any way help you do your job better by enhancing your knowledge and understanding about your field. So, and by anything, I really mean anything. It could be reading a book, it could be watching a film, it could be traveling, or it could be going to a museum. So these are all various activities that you need to think about how you are going to utilize, and you're going to present through an angle that says, this taught me something, I've learned something from this that I didn't know before, and now I'm better because of that and that reason. So there is these different types of things. It's not always conferences and webinars and workshops. It could be anything really that you believe makes you a better professional in what you do. And that's
I have a question concerning the informal CPD then. Do professional associations take into account informal CPD?
Yeah, they actually mention those on their websites and on the various code of conduct you sign as a translator. They say, for example, if you wanted to become a chartered linguist, I think you have to have like 30 hours of CPD each year for the past 3 years or something like that. And then there is a long list of things they say they will accept. And they say, so by that we mean formal, blah, 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 and informal, such and such. And I think their only limitation there is that you obviously have to prove that you did go somewhere. So keep all your records, keep a good log of the emails you received from booking something, or even the receipt of the book that you bought it. Obviously, you can't prove that you read it. Yeah, you can't prove that. Oh yes, I watched this film. But of course, there is other things that will legally limit you in a way. There is going to be a statement that says, I've declared everything I've declared is true, and so on.
Yeah.
So there is that type of, you know, self-declaration, if you want, that then the various organizations will take as your own word, you know, the truth of your own word. Yeah. And then the other type of CPD sort of subcategory, I'd say, is there is the ones that are language related and translation related, and then there is the ones that are relating to your field or area of specialization. So you could be going to workshops that are about learning how to subtitle, or learning how to proofread better, or review tips on how to become a better reviewer. But then you might also go to a conference that's about law, because you're a legal translator. So there is this different 4 types of categories. So formal, informal, language industry related, and then specialization related CPD. So I guess that answers the question, you know, can you define CPD and what is CPD? And then as to the limitations, I can't speak for all the events happening on the planet, but anything I've tried to go to was open and accessible by anybody. So events tend to have a private function, of course. Yeah, like you would say, oh, I'm interested in, I'm translating weddings. Can I go to Prince Harry's wedding? That obviously, you know, that's a private function. But then, of course, like last week, for example, I was in WTM in London, which is the World Travel Market, and that's a huge travel tourism exhibition and conference. And the first day they said, oh, you can't come because it's only for press people. But on the next day they said, then now it's open to the public, so you can come on the second day. So I don't think there are limitations. I mean, people want to get your money. So if you give them your money, they will say, you've paid, so come to the event. And as I said before, I think it's important to attend not only translation events. And from my experience, when you go to an event where translators are less likely to go to, you get the advantage of being perhaps the only translation specialist in the room. And people will express a different kind of interest in you. For example, if you're in a room full of marketeers and you're the only translator, and you say, I am a translator, but I'm really interested in marketing because I translate marketing content all the time. So I'm a translator marketeer. And they will say, that's great. We never met a translator. That's great that you're here. We're so glad to have you. So it's, yeah, I don't know if that answers the limitations part. Yeah, I hope it did.
I think it does.
It does.
Yeah, good.
One of the most popular questions actually is, where do translators find events? Can you share some tips on how to find events and choose the events that are relative to what you want to learn?
Yeah, you're right. I think that's perhaps the biggest challenge, because there is an abundance of events out there, not just translation related, but in general. And it's difficult to know where to go, which one to choose, and how to budget for them, because some of them are free, some of them are relatively affordable, some of them might be too expensive. Obviously, budget is something that is going to help you decide whether you go or not, because some, for example, law conferences are on £700 a day. Now you may think, that's great, I have this kind of money, I'm gonna go. Or you may think, I can't do it, right? So there is budget limitations. But first, as to where you can find them, the number one place that somebody might immediately think of is the websites of the professional associations for translators. So they organize events all the time, and they have a calendar and you can see what's going on. But of course, that's one place, and there might be limits to as what they offer in terms of variety. You might feel that you've done this before and you don't want to do this again. Then there is a few other more interesting places, I would say. So there is a phone app called Meetup app, if that makes sense. Meetup app.
Yeah.
Which you can download on your phone. Then you log, it's free. You log all your interests, what you're into, whether you're into sports, driving, walking, French, Greek, languages, cinema, and it works with your location. So it will tell you around you what's going on and who's going. So you basically do a profile. And it's like a social network kind of, but not as huge, obviously, as Facebook, let's say. So that's one good idea. And that's one place where people may not necessarily think of going to look for CPD events. For example, a few weeks ago, I was in one event in Oxford through Meetup, which was an Oxford Women Writers event. I think it was something like that, where I met a copywriter. Then we started talking about copywriting and marketing, and then she's passed on some work to me. So it's not always about getting work, but it's about knowing what's going on around you and presenting yourself and saying to the world and to your local community, I exist and this is what I do, because you never know.
Yeah.
And then another really good place for events, at least for me, is Eventbrite. I'm sure you know this one. It's online. Again, it works. You can search by location, and you can search by, let's say, I live near London, so I search for events in London. And what events do I want to go to? I want to go to events that attract Greek people, because Greek people living in London might be my customers, and they're the people that maybe I want to give my business card to. So I type Greek and then London, and then it comes up with all kinds of things like Greek wine tasting, Greek movie night, Greek in it. And I'm a translator that translates oil and gas, and this is lots of companies that came from Greece and hold this summit in London. I should go and say, look, I'm a professional translator, I specialize in oil. I don't, but I'm saying, in case, you do. And equally, if you're doing work into Spanish, you can follow the same technique and look for things going on around the Spanish community that attracts Spanish businesses or Spanish people, because these are likely to be your customers. And then another really great online place where you can look for particularly courses if you want to find a new specialization, or if you want to deepen a specialization you already have, are the so-called MOOCs. So this is MOOCs, massive online open courses. And there is tons of lists of modules that you can find online on honestly any topic. And these are modules offered by universities such as Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Imperial, UCL, really renowned universities, popular, famous, that, they have this kind of prestige around them. And you can attend a variety of different modules on anything you can think of. It could be marine biology to the English common law. And you can do one module or two modules, and they're for free. I believe you only pay if you want to receive the certificate.
Yeah.
But then again, that's not a huge amount of money. So that's, the MOOCs is a very good way of learning something that it's going to help you with your specializations, either to create one because you think you might want to go into translating about the space, or marine biology, whatever. There is so many topics. So there is those places. And then I guess in our time, because everything we do is online, we're on our computer all the time, we're on our phones, we don't tend to look around. And I'm realizing more and more there is CPD all over. There is posters about this workshop is happening in this coffee shop, and our cinema is holding a talk about this film, or museums might send a guide that says what's happening during this year or during this semester, and they have guided talks, so they will invite somebody. And so there is a lot to look out for on paper as well as online. So basically keep your eyes open, and coffee shops in particular these days can be very interesting places. I don't know about where you are, but at least in London and Oxford, they are becoming more like a culture centers, and they hold various exhibitions and events and talks. And so if you find a talk being relevant to you and what you do, then you should go to it. Which I guess gets me to the next point.
How to choose from this abundance of different opportunities for CPD.
Yeah, so that is depending on you, on who you are and what you do. Because, and also sometimes your language combination, because let's face it, with what we do with translation, our language combination is likely to determine the types of documents and things we end up working with. And by that, I mean, for example, I am Greek and I'm also Cypriot. And what do these two countries have in common? Apart from the Greek language, they're huge in tourism and traveling. So they attract more visitors than the amount of the entire population each year. So there is a lot of hotels, and they all on websites. There is a lot of tour operators. So I end up doing a lot of travel and tourism because that's where the demand is. So if you translate German, it might be automotive. If you are Italian, it might be food or fashion or art and so on. So I think we need to think a bit more strategically around how we choose which CPD events to attend. Where are basically our customers, and what is it that you want to achieve by attending a CPD event? Is it because you want to become a better translator of automotive for the car industry, because you translate from German into English, and all these exports of German cars to other English-speaking countries will bring more work for you? That might be one reason. So I guess it might be very difficult at the beginning to know which events to attend. And I remember for myself going to anything and everything that appeared in front of me, because I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. And that's okay. If you are at the great start, you're at the very beginning, and you don't know what you want to specialize on, and you don't know even if you want to be a translator, then go to as many as you can. And I think it will honestly help you. It will be overwhelming, but it is going to help you. That's, it helped me a lot at the beginning. I remember running around to a lot of different courses and workshops and seminars, but I met my colleagues that way, and I met my first customers that way, that then kind of shaped the route I am now following. So it's all about what is your goal and what is your strategy. So I guess now it's November and it's towards the end of the year. Perhaps what translators can do is think about what was this year like and what do I want to achieve next year, and what is my strategy, what is my business plan for next year. And I know that the words strategy and business plan sound huge and scary, but anything can be a business plan, a bullet point list with very basic road mapping, like by Q1 I will have this done, by Q2 I will have this done. This is a business plan, this is a roadmap. So you need to get this done first and then wrap around it all the CPD events. So for example, if you know that in 3 years from now you want to have one more language pair in your portfolio, let's say you're translating from English into German and you also know some French and you're at the B level, but you're really good at French and you really think that there is good demand for French into German. So in 3 years' time, you say, I want to have this French into German language pair in my portfolio. So what do I need to do? I need to get the C2 level in French. I need to get lots of experience and perhaps do some volunteering or get good references from my clients doing French into German. And where am I going to meet the French into German customers? And try to think of all those events, all of those commerce lines, if you want, because it's commercial lines that we need to follow as translators, and plan this in. So it's all about current, present, and future thinking at the same time. That's why I think CPD is very important, because I think it needs to fit in within your roadmap, within your career development.
Yeah, and for that you have to have that roadmap and career development. So it kind of makes exactly. You plan ahead a little.
Yes, and exactly. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It could just be sitting down in an afternoon and writing a few notes on a piece of paper and then keep going back to it and adding to it. Or every time you have a new idea, go back and note it down, and then see what's feasible. And also try to perhaps budget for it. So look at your expenses this year and say, well, I've spent 500 euros or dollars or whatever on translation and CPD events this year. Do I want to budget the same amount of money for next year, or do I want to double it because I want to go to this extra? Also important, because if you don't feel like you've got the money in the bank, then you just can't do it.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah, so a few practical things.
We have, and our next question is about another very practical thing. How do you overcome shyness when attending an event? Because I think it's a big question for a lot of our colleagues.
Yeah, I know. That was one of my biggest problems when I was at the start. I really wanted to attend all these events, but I wasn't talking to anyone and I was getting really disappointed. And so I think I've got some practical tips as to how you can overcome that. And number one is pick somebody and take them with you. Force them. You just have to force them. They don't have to be a translator. Even better if they're not. Like, they could be your friend. And if it's free, then great. And if it's, if they have to pay something, you can say, okay, I'll pay the ticket for you. Please do me this favor and come with me. And how that works is, for people who are shy, who maybe lack the self-esteem or maybe the confidence, if you have somebody next to you who you are trusting or that creates this positive energy in you, and you might feel a bit more comfortable. Also, they can be your wingman or wingwoman. So they could, if they're quite extrovert, they might walk up and say, hey, this is my friend Vasiliki, she's a translator. Have you met Vasiliki? Yeah, so it can work that way. The only risk with that is that you may stick with the person and not talk to anyone else. So if that happens, do not repeat this tip. It is not working for you. Because that has happened to me in the past, where I've taken somebody and we just stuck together all the time, and we were comfortable. We were talking to each other, and therefore nobody came up to talk to us because it wasn't awkward for anyone. Now, on the other hand, if you're by yourself, some people might walk up to you and say, not actually say it, but they might come to talk to you because they see you there all by yourself in your corner, and I think, oh God, this poor person is by themselves. Let's just go speak to them. So they might come up and talk to you. So maybe that's one benefit of going by yourself. The other thing is, so introversion, because that's the psychologist kicking in me right now. Introversion is a multifaceted personality trait. So you might not like to talk. That's one version of introversion or shyness. The other one is you might just not like being outside for too long. So try with events that are 1 hour long or 2 hours long. You don't have to go to a 3-day conference. Don't do this. Don't let this be the first thing you go to if you're shy or if you're not sure about, having the confidence to go to one. Start with a webinar, then go to 1 hour workshop or a 2 hour workshop or a 3 hour workshop. Then the other thing I think is the problem. It's not so much the going out. I think it's starting a conversation. So I think that might be perhaps a bigger problem for some people. So how do you initiate conversation? How do you walk up to people and say, hi, I'm this person. This is what I do. And I'll say you don't always have to be the one who initiates the conversation. You might not be comfortable doing that. So it's fine if you are not comfortable, but you might be comfortable talking. So what you need to make sure happens is that somebody comes and talks to you. So there is ways of doing that. Like, for example, you can wear some crazy kind of shoe. Like you can wear orange color shoes or pink shoes or yellow shoes, or you can wear a green blazer. People are going to come and say, oh, I love your shoes. Or, oh my God, you're wearing yellow shoes. So it's a conversation opener. It's a starter. It doesn't have to be about, oh, hello, who are you and what do you do? It could be anything. So what I started to do, I don't wear yellow shoes, but I printed my own name and business badge, because what kept happening was people kept getting my name wrong, and I wasn't happy with that. So I printed my own name and business badge. It's like a sticker. So I just stick it on, and it's orange. And it's different to the badge that everybody else is wearing. So it attracts the attention because of the color, and also because people keep asking, why I don't have the sticker? Why do you have the sticker? And then we start talking about, why I have the sticker and what's my business name and why I named it this way and what I do. Also, something that is definitely going to help you is social media, because what I am finding more and more often is that I go to events, I go to workshops or conferences or exhibitions, and I see people's faces that I know from somewhere, but I'm not sure where from. I just don't know where I heard them from. So we just keep looking at each other and we're like, who are you and what do you do? And then it clicks, oh, Twitter, we've been tweeting for 2 years. So, and then you meet them in real life, and you already feel that you have that, you feel like you almost know them. So what happens is, when you know people in the digital world, then when you meet them in the real world, it becomes a bit less awkward. Yeah. So if you are to go to an event, stalk everybody online that's going to the event. Find them on LinkedIn, find them on Facebook, see if they've got a page, find their website, find what they do for a living. You might have both attended the same university. So that's something you could talk about. Or you might want to tweet them something relevant, or you might want to say, hey, I'm going to this event, do you want to go together? Or I saw you're going to this event and tell me more about it, and so on. So I guess that's things that you do before the CPD you attend will help you during the CPD, especially if you are not very sure about how to start the conversation. So that's, yeah, and people remember faces. People remember faces. They might not remember your name, but they will remember your face. And if they get that question in their head around, where do I know you from? They will come and talk to you, because it's the curiosity that will push them. You know, they will have a question and they want an answer. So they will come and talk to you. So that's another thing I've realized it's happening to me, you know, in my experience. And I find it as a nice, it's a nice, smooth way of starting a conversation, and also feeling like you belong there, that it's the right place to be. And it's not awkward because you're not completely by yourself.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the BP16 conference that I went to. I basically had a feeling that I know at least some people there, because I had an opportunity. We already had, it was called Blabbing Translators back then, but we already had the show, and we had a couple of people who were also going to the conference on the show before I went there. And it was really nice because you're saying that I really had a feeling like I belonged there, and I also knew some people. So yeah,
exactly.
And they knew you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So it really helps, I think, establishing that connection.
What are some of the other things that you can do before attending an event in order to make the most of it?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, apart from the very practical things like, you know, making sure where you're going, preparing your tickets and so on, I really would highlight that it's looking into who is going to be there and who is going to be speaking and who are they. You know, it's fine to do some online stalking, you know. You can go on their LinkedIn profile and see what they've done before and why they're there, and try to establish a common ground perhaps with them and find a nice conversation topic. Also, something you can do as a professional is have your pitch ready. So if somebody asks you what you do, be ready, know what you're going to say. Because if you start slowing down or feeling like you don't know what you're saying, then that's not very good for you. So I would say have your pitch ready, practice it at home, and look into people's profiles. Try not to attend all the events and try not to stalk people too much. Obviously, have your business cards ready. Have your business cards ready, and any other commercial or marketing material you have, such as your leaflets or company brochures or your badges and your stickers. If you're like me and you put a sticker on, make sure you have that. And I'm aware of time. I wanted to quickly say what's also important to do after you attended a CPD event, because if you do go and you do meet people and then you go home, you go back to your office, back to your routine, and you just don't follow up, for example, that's equally not very well spent time. So following up is very important. So pick up the business cards of the people you met at the conference and send them an email and saying, it could be anything. hi, how are you? Just to remind you, I'm this person we met at that conference. This is what I do. And it feels very strange sometimes to do that, because it's like, well, why am I saying it to them again? It's a bit annoying. I'm probably annoying. But according to marketing rules and statistics, you have to tell people 9 times something before they understand it and they remember it 9 times. So obviously you don't send them 9 emails, but that could be, 9 different points of contact. So one, it could be an email, then you can find them on Facebook, then you can add them on LinkedIn, then you can follow them on Twitter. So keep reminding them, not every day, but once in a while, that you exist, and then it will click in them. And I guess the other very important thing is keep a record of what you attended and when, because if you don't, then somebody asks you what you attended this year. You have to spend all the time to gather the evidence, like your emails, your booking tickets, your airplane tickets, if you flew to a country to go to a conference, for example. And that takes a lot of time. And I actually had to do my record this year at the beginning of the year. And it was the first time I was actually putting it together ever. And I had to start from 2009. And that really hurt. It took me so long. But if you want to find a template, website, it's free to download. It's just on the About section. So you may like it, you may not like it. It's not perfect. I know it's not perfect because usually, it's a list of titles of things you attended and it's boring. But it's a record of all the things you went to, and you can send it easily to a client or anyone who asks for it. And so it's a starting point. So if you want a template, just go get mine, download it, see if it works for you, and it could be a starting point for you. Because I know a lot of people who don't keep a CPD record, and it's very easy to forget where you've been and why and what you've learned, and try to not just list the titles of the events you attended, but also have like a short description next to them, or even the link to the website. If it was a conference, all these events have websites. So you can have the link to them. And if you want not to be too wordy, you can put the title, link it, and then if somebody wants to know more about what exactly you've learned in this legal workshop in London, then they can click on it and go and read it. But sometimes links do disappear. So what I do is I paste the link in, but then also I copy paste the description from the website of each event I attended, and I put that there as well. So it's important to keep a record, and every time you go to an event, keep going back to it, keep updating it, and this way it's not going to be overwhelming. So I think that's everything. I guess we need to ask people if they have questions, and if we obviously answered all the questions.
Well, we've been answering quite a few questions during the webinar, and you've covered so much in such a comprehensive manner. So personally, I don't think I can think of any questions. I just want to get out of the house right now
and go to and find a CPD.
Find a CPD event.
Yay! That was the goal.
Great. To wrap this up, if you could give just one most important piece of advice to someone who's considering going to a CPD event, paying more attention to their CPD, what would it be? The most important thing that you think would help someone to become more conscious of it.
I think is having that long term plan of who and what you want to be in 5 years from now, because ultimately this is going to guide all of your choices. If you don't have that long-term ideal, most of the times is an ideal place. You may not get there, but you need to have that ideal place. So the moment you have it, then it will be easier to make all the choices. And also you will be able to justify to yourself why you're doing it, because you know you have a target you want to reach, you know you have a level to achieve, and you know that by going to this conference, this is taking you one step closer. So I would say start with a plan.
I feel that this advice applies to all areas of our life, actually, not just CPD. Thank you so much, Vasiliki. Yeah,
I know. You're welcome.
I hope that you guys found it as useful as I did, and you feel as motivated as Dimitri does. Thank you for listening and watching this webinar. I hope you'll join us next week. I also hope that if you're watching this in the recording, you will share this with your friends and colleagues. Please, you can go to our website at translatorsonair.com to subscribe to our newsletter so that you don't miss any future episodes. And also don't forget to check out the website of our sponsors at smartcat.ai, or just click the first link in the description if you're watching this in the recording. And I guess that's it, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Vasiliki.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Bye.